All right, hello everybody. How are you today? Are we doing well? I think we can do better. There's a lot of people in the room. Are we doing well? I love to hear it and see it. All right, a few housekeeping things before we get into the program. Number one, if you have your cell phone with you, if you could please turn your ringer off, that would be greatly appreciated. I want to definitely shout out the media that is with us today, and that would be Armstrong Cable, Bull Moose Marketing, Cool 101.7, Erie News Now, Seven Mountains Media, and the Meadville Tribune. I want to thank them for joining us. Other housekeeping things. Restrooms are through this door right here. You walk all the way to the back, turn left, and when you see the exit sign, you turn right, and the bathrooms are right there. If you get lost, please ask an usher. They will be glad to help you. All right, so I'm going to get into the program now. I want to welcome everybody, and I want to take note of this room right now. This room is full of so many beautiful people from all walks of life, ages, stages. And you know, a lot of people think that folks are separate and there's a problem with everything. But this room right here speaks otherwise. And so I want to thank every single person in here for your attendance. You make my heart proud and happy. All right, so thank you. Thank you guys. Give yourselves a round of applause for sure. So I'm not going to hold the program up too long. I would like to introduce our first speaker, and that would be Mayor Kinder.
Hello, friends. I'm so excited to see everybody in this room, right? I don't think anybody can fill a room like Dr. Dixon can, I'll tell you what, right? And look at everybody's faces. We're all from different agencies and different places, right? Here to celebrate a courageous woman, somebody that showed bravery, and somebody who saw a problem, right? She didn't see herself in the history that was written in this place, and she solved it. She found a solution, and she solved it. And nothing makes me more proud to be a part of this community, because we know we are problem solvers. We know we care about each other, and we want everybody to have the opportunity to know their history. And because of Dr. Dixon, it is not just readily available for some people, right? It is accessible for everyone. And so I just want to thank Dr. Dixon for making my history accessible, for making it possible for me to teach my children the Black history here in town, and for just not taking no, right? Sometimes we can't take no, right? That's exciting, and that is wonderful, and she gave me somebody to look up to, right? Thank you for being a role model. Thank you for being fearfully made and making us scared, right, to not do better, right? But she did, man, she did. She didn't take anything with excellence, and I, although may not be excellent, I am so happy to have her support, and so happy to be able to sit in rooms with her and be almost a peer. I know people think we're peers. We are not. We are not. But I want to thank you for always thinking about us and thinking about future generations, right? Because I got the same answers that she got. That there were no slaves here, there were no Black people here, there was no history of mine here. And what that did, it made me feel like I had no place, right? I had no foundation, and that is not the truth. I look in this room and I see people who helped my mother raise me. I see people who were working so very hard at that time that I could look up to, that I knew I was good, that I knew I was smart just by seeing them in our community. And for you guys, I want to thank you for being here, for being so strong, for being so courageous, and for looking like me while you were doing it, right? And I think you see who I'm looking at in this room, right? So with that, I'm gonna read a proclamation. Just a thank you. Just an acknowledgement, right? Anybody can acknowledge Dr. Dixon, and everybody will respect Dr. Dixon. But I'm not sure everybody loves you like I love you. So, this is a proclamation. Whereas, I'm getting old here. Whereas, in 1988, Dr. Armendia Dixon and Deidre Prester of the Meadville branch of the NAACP Unit 2271 authored Meadville Ebony Genealogy of Sorts, a significant historical account documenting the experiences of Black residents in Meadville from 1800 to 1920. And whereas this publication stands as an invaluable resource illuminating the resilience, achievements, and contributions of Black individuals and families within our community, despite historical challenges, offering a narrative of hope and perseverance. And whereas the research contained in the Meadville Ebony Genealogy of Sorts has served as a foundation for further exploration into the rich and diverse history of Meadville's Black community, inspiring continued study and awareness. And whereas the city of Meadville recognizes the significance of preserving this and celebrating the history of all of its residents, fostering an inclusive and informed community that values the contributions of individuals of all backgrounds. Now, therefore, I, Jamie Kinder, Mayor on behalf of the City of Meadville, do hereby recognize and commend Meadville Ebony Genealogy of Sorts for its lasting impact and encourage all residents to attend this important event and to honor and celebrate our shared history. So thank you, Dr. Dixon, for making people know that Black history is Meadville history and Black history is American history. Thank you.
So, I want to say, I think we need one more round of applause. That was a beautiful proclamation. Thank you, Mayor Kinder. Next up, we are going to have Mr. Josh Sheritz from the Historical Society.
Good afternoon, everyone. When Dr. Dixon walked into the Historical Society a couple of years ago and said, we need to talk about this book, and first I had to find a copy of the book, which was the first problem we had. So we were able to rectify that, and as you see, we have them in the back, we have them at the Historical Society, and I'll get to mention of them in the back in just a second. But we have to thank Dr. Dixon. Jamie is absolutely right, that Black history is Meadville history, and Black history is Crawford County history. But Dr. Dixon, and bringing the book, for lack of a better word, but bringing the book back again, and has incited some other exciting things at the Historical Society. We're working with the crew from the Meadville Unity Center to try to bring that portion of Meadville history, of Black history, to life again. We're working with Dr. Sarah Roncolato, or Reverend Sarah Roncolato, who couldn't be with us here today, but to give Elias Allen, who helped desegregate schools in Pennsylvania, and who you might hear a little bit about in Dr. Dixon's book, his legacy back with a tombstone for a man who's had an unmarked grave since his passing over a century ago. So really, we on behalf of the Historical Society, want to thank you, because not just have you been talking and researching and doing, but also inspiring. And so we appreciate that. That said, in regards to Dr. Dixon's book, if you don't have a copy and you'd like a copy, we do have them back at the registration table and can help you out afterwards. And if you don't have a chance today, they are at the Historical Society just across Diamond Park on a regular basis. So on that note, thank you so much, and thank you for including the Historical Society in this.
Thank you very much, Josh. Next up is a very close friend to Dr. Dixon, Evangelist Dorothy Chapman. She is a beautiful human being who loves everybody from youth to elders. She works very hard in this community, and I am more than thankful to be honored to announce her. If you could join us.
Good afternoon. I am Evangelist Dorothy Chapman from Beacon Liberty Street Church, where the road to Beacon is blessed. I thank the Lord for being here in the celebration of Dr. Dixon. This woman got a good heart, and you can learn a lot through Dr. Dixon. And I was a little shy at the beginning when I joined the Martin Luther King's board. But I'm telling you, being with her and learning her value on life and sticking with people, I learned that. And I thank God for Dr. Dixon, because she got a heart of gold. She got a heart of gold, and she support everyone. Everyone. When she gets to talk about this program, that program, and who runs it, she's behind it 100%. She's behind it 100%. So if you want to learn anything, get with Dr. Dixon. Okay?
Thank you, Evangelist Chapman. So she kind of leads me into something that I've had on my mind since I heard Dr. Dixon say this. She told me that each person is a sacred individual, and we should treat them as such. And you know, it gives me goosebumps just saying it, because I don't think we stop and actually give ourselves that moment to recognize the beautiful people around us. And we should treat each other as sacred. We're beautiful humans, and we should be there for one another. All right, so I don't want to hold anything up. The next speaker would be Ms. Caitlin Tompkins. She is a senior at Allegheny and has done a little further research and utilized the book that Dr. Dixon and Ms. Deidre Prester wrote. So without further ado, Caitlin, if you could join us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin. Like we said, I'm a senior at Allegheny College. And my senior project is sort of a continuation of research I started 2 years ago in an intro-level history class. But it has led me to where I am now, which is researching slavery and the formation of Meadville's Black community through legislative and social adversity. I've looked through census records, legal documents, newspapers, and through all of that I found Dr. Dixon's and the Meadville Ebony Genealogy of sorts. And learned a lot about not only Black history, but Meadville's ability to come together as a community, especially, you know, in times where people may not have been getting recognition. You know, Dr. Dixon and the genealogy talks about how Black people do not show up under their names and their families until about 1850. But through all of that, despite that, they were coming together through things like, you know, active participation in the Underground Railroad, which is a story that Meadville can claim and should be proud of and should talk about. So I could not have done any of this without Dr. Dixon's work, and she's really helped me understand, you know, the community that I've been privileged to be part of for the past 4 years. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. So our next speaker, Mrs. Lynn Atwell, is a dear friend of Dr. Dixon's, and is a beautiful human being from what I hear. I would love to get to know you at some point. Without further ado, Ms. Lynn Atwell.
Well, when I think of a beautiful human being, I think of Armendia. And some of you call her Mandy, some of you are here today. I look in your faces and I see a lot of people who really must love her as I do. She has inspired me. I was a preschool teacher and I handled a program that Armendia was in charge of, and she was a taskmaster. As you all know. And I have been very fortunate to follow her career, and eventually I hope that she'll come to Westbury when she's ready to give up the ghost. But I don't think that's going to be too soon. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Atwell. Our next speaker is Miss Jan Embledge. This is, again, another beautiful human being and a very close friend of Dr. Dixon, and I hear also was a very close friend of Dr. Dixon's mother. Again, yet another human being that I would love to get to know better. Without further ado, Miss Jan Embledge.
Thank you, Maria.
You're very welcome.
I was asked to say a few words by the committee, and when I hung up the phone, I said a few words about who, what, what's the topic? Then it dawned on me, of course, Dr. Armendia Dixon. I've known her about 35 years, mainly through Stone Church. If there is any woman in Meadville that I most respect and admire, it is her. I could list all of her accomplishments, but time doesn't allow, or I'll get the hook to get me off stage. But the thing I most admire is her untiring work on the MLK Scholarship Fund. I just met my new art teacher last Monday. Charles, if you're in the room, raise your hand. He thought he thought he might bring his daughter today. Guess what? He is an awardee. So, he and how many other scholarships have led to community leaders in this community? Do you know offhand how many scholarships MLK Jr. has awarded?
We have given close to 200 scholarships.
Whoa. Close to 200 scholarships have been given by this fund. It's an awesome asset in this community. And if you would allow me, I would nominate Dr. Armendia Dixon to be a founding member of the beloved community of Meadville. Dr. Dixon.
Thank you very much, Ms. Embledge. So our next speaker is the woman of the hour. I want to say I feel like every one of us have the same message and the same feeling. Dr. Dixon has been our mentor, a teacher, a friend, a loved one. And it speaks volumes that almost every single speaker and many of the people in this room have the same exact thing to say. This woman has changed the lives of many, and I love that it was said she expects nothing less than excellence. Every single person is excellent in this room, and we are all better for knowing her. So, if you would join me in welcoming Dr. Dixon up to the podium for the main event.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure I can do this presentation. Thanks. Oh my goodness, thanks to each of you. I will get started talking about the Ebony Genealogy of sorts. The purpose of Meadville Ebony Genealogy of sorts, done in observance of the bicentennial, 1988, is to give an account of blacks in Meadville from 1800 through 1900. It will show roots we have planted. It is important that there is a realization that the lives of blacks in Meadville are not separate from other ethnic groups, but have overlapped and interlocked through many generations. The concluding chapter touches on a few prominent families who were in Meadville during the early 1900s. It shows how the lives of blacks had begun to impact the Meadville community. For the most part, the account of blacks is the hope that sprang from common experiences which brought about great expectations in spite of ill-fated beginnings. It is the hope that is shared with all mankind. It is indeed a Meadville Ebony Genealogy of sorts. In celebration of Meadville's bicentennial, I served on the publication committee. Work started in 1987 to prepare for our final publication in 1988. One question that came to mind during committee discussions, namely, why don't we include African Americans in early Meadville history? There was pushback from a committee member on the significance of African Americans to the history of Meadville. She said, blacks had nothing to do with the history of Meadville. And I wanted to find the answer to my question. Work started with reaching out to the local NAACP chapter. Mrs. Deidre Prester, secretary, offered to help me. Crawford County Historical Society granted us permission to look at all available archival records. Robert Alkovich, curator, gave us access to early historical records. We looked through cemetery records, household tax records, county birth certificates, and census records. We also spoke with several local African American families who provided photographs that we used for other leads. We taught our children to assist with our research by making source cards. There were some citizens who worked closely with us, and I'm sure you may remember some of these names. They included Mrs. Imogene Allen, Mrs. Irma Brown, Mrs. Jenny Carter, Mr. Horace Chen, Mrs. Marguerite Chen, Harrison D. Dixon Jr., Kenneth Lucas, Mrs. Miriam Lucas, Mr. Caesar Overton, Mrs. Mabel Shears, and Mr. John Wellington Jr. Updates for this book are provided by Thomas L. Yosik, Esquire. Our technical resources were typical of the 1980s. Oh my goodness, that seems like ages ago. We mainly did handwritten notes. We tape recorded interviews and then we transcribed them by hand, of course. We had a typewriter, however, it was only used for final copies. We used an old-fashioned copier, you know, the one that you cranked up and you put, oh my goodness, and it got all over the place and you had to do it again and again. And we had countless source cards. We started the first section, 1800 through 1840. We started this section with a quote located in the History of Crawford County by Warner, 1985. This quote says, "And at the time of complete obscuration, the chillness of evening was felt." You know, Dietrich and I believe that our history was hidden, and there was a need for clarity and transparency. The 1800 U.S. Census signed by Judge David Mead shows the existence of slaves in Meadville. The census gives the names of slave owners and the number of slaves they own. The names of slaves or blacks are not recorded. The Pennsylvania General Assembly during the Revolution passed an act for the gradual abolition of slavery, which limited the servitude of Negroes and mulattoes to 28 years. The act was amended in 1788 to emancipate children born thereafter to slave mothers, unless they were registered within 6 months of birth. Registration was by filing with the clerk of the Court of Quarter Sessions a statement of the owner's full name, occupation, and residence, together with the child's age, given name, and sex. Registered children served until the age of 28. The children were not really free, but indentured servants for 28 years. And during our research, we don't know, we could not find out what happened to these children who were born. We do not know if they got married, who they married, how long they were married, who their children were. They were lost, and they still are lost for the most part. I think we found one out of that. So in May 1801, John Grubb, Esquire, in the jurisdiction of Crawford County, returned to the clerk of peace, one male Negro woman, Emmy, on the 16th day of November, 1800, and named William. In September 1801, Alexander Laughlin of Springfield Township returned to the clerk of peace one female Negro child born of his Negro woman, Peg, on the 19th of June, 1801, and named Nance. In October 1802, William Davis, farmer of Meade Township, returned to the clerk of peace one female mulatto child called Dime, born the 25th day of April, 1801, last passed to his Negro woman, Vine. In January 1804, Alexander McIntyre, innkeeper of Meadville, returned to the clerk of peace one Negro child called Mary Ann, born of his Negro woman named Sarah, the 25th day of August, last passed, and the child has to serve until 25 years of age. In the United States 1810 census, the names of slaves and blacks are not recorded. Only white males, white females, and foreigners not naturalized are recorded. In February 1811, William Cook, farmer and house carpenter of Salisbury Township, returned to the clerk of peace one male Negro child, born to his Negro woman Dana on the 13th day of April, 1810, named Pompey. In June 1815, Augustus Sackett, Esquire of Meadville Township, returned to the clerk of the session of Crawford County aforesaid one Negro child called Adeline, born of his Negro woman named Eleanor, on or about the 26th day of March last past, and whom he purchased of David Baker of the city of Meadville, which child is to serve until 25 years of age. You know, I hope that you are seeing that there weren't that many people in Meadville who believed in slavery. These are just a few slaves. So that says something. In the United States 1820 census, slaves and blacks are not recorded. Only white males, white females, and foreigners not naturalized are recorded. There were 41 free colored persons with no names. We just got lost. The few citizens who owned slaves held out as long as possible. As late as 1831, there was evidence that slavery still existed in Meadville. In the December 24, 1831 edition of the Crawford Weekly Messenger, there appeared the following notice: for sale, the time and services of a colored boy who is 12 years old and has 16 years to serve. That's the indentured servant, of good constitution and disposition. Purchases are referred for terms and further particulars to Robert L. Porter, Esquire. In the U.S. 1830 census, blacks are not recorded. White males, white females, and foreigners not naturalized are recorded. In the U.S. 1840 census, free blacks are recorded. White males, white females, and foreigners not naturalized are recorded. The 1840 U.S. Census shows the number of colored persons in Meadville. There were 101 total males and 74 total females. In spite of slavery, free blacks began to migrate to Meadville as early as 1800. The black population doubled during the decades between 1830 and 1850, thus offering better protection for incoming fugitive slaves. In July 1835, there was a great deal of agitation against the institution of slavery. Oh, we're so thankful. A meeting was held in the courthouse, and an anti-slavery society was organized in Meadville. Deborah and I quoted James Weldon Johnson, sing a song full of the hope that the dark past has taught us. Because in the U.S. 1850 census, for the first time, there appeared the names of blacks and descriptions of our household. And I think we need to clap about that, because yes, my goodness. And of course, in the book, there's just a list of names and descriptions. But I wanted to point out that there's a black family headed by James Butler. When he appears in the census, he is 38 years old. He owned real estate valued at $800. He was a laborer, and he and his wife had 3 children. He and his wife worked for William Reynolds in the Baldwin Reynolds house. And when Mrs. Witherspoon was working for Baldwin Reynolds, she actually had a plaque made after she did her research. So there's a plaque that tells you about the Butler family who helped in Baldwin Reynolds' house. Then there's a black family headed by Richard Henderson. Richard and his brother Robert came to Meadville in 1824 as free men. They were born slaves and the children of slaves. They obtained their freedom under Pennsylvania law. Richard was a barber. They became the first black established family in Meadville. He was a central figure in the Underground Railroad. The Henderson's home at 371 Arch Street was used as one of the stations in the Underground Railroad. It is believed that over 500 runaway slaves stopped at the Henderson's house. Under Henderson's leadership, members purchased Bethel AME Church at the present site at 961 Liberty Street. On June 1, 1980, the city of Meadville, local and state officials celebrated the erection of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission marker at Liberty Street, honoring Richard Henderson. If you've not seen the marker, stop by sometimes and read it. It says, born a slave in Maryland in 1801, he escaped as a boy, and about 1824 came to Meadville. A barber, he was long active in the Underground Railroad. His Arch Street house, since torn down, is estimated to have harbored some 500 runaway slaves prior to the Civil War. Others who played a role in the Underground Railroad were Fitz Randolph, Harm Hyder Cooper, Robert and James Hanna, Bishop Allen, Levi Barton, and George Dallimore. And of course, if you have time to do some browsing, look at Ken Williams' topic on John Brown, the abolitionist. The occupation of blacks were evident in our census, in our studies. The occupations included laborer, housekeeping, husker, working on a farm, washerwoman, barber, domestic servant, bellboy, cook, porter, dishwasher, waitress, and carpenter. And all of this was in the description of the African American families. Deecher and I quoted, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way. We are for sure listed in the U.S. Census where we see the head of households. Then there's a black family headed by Eliza Allen. I'm sure you heard some of Reverend Ron Colada's talk about this. But at the South Ward schools, Eliza Allen tried unsuccessfully to enroll his two children. He appealed to the Crawford County Court of Common Pleas, and Judge Pearson Church declared unconstitutional the 1854 state law mandating separate schools for Negro children. The law was amended effective July 4, 1881, to prohibit such segregation. A historical marker erected for this decision was placed on South Main Street, 0.1 mile north of Linden Street. And of course, it still stands, and we can always look at it because it's right next to 2nd District School. And I know when we had Mr. Anthony Stellata as principal, he would remind us of that marker and what it meant. And of course, he was a great principal too. He really was. So, the judge was a graduate of Meadville area senior high school. My goodness. And he, of course, rendered one of the second decisions in the United States about children being able to attend school no matter what color. So he goes down in history. And please pick up a copy if you like so you can read it because it's so elegant. You know how you don't understand lawyers' language? Well, here's you understand. You would love to read what his decision is because it's absolutely brilliant and so easy to understand. So what happened here is that the marker says, an event here in September 1880 led to the end of segregation by race in the state's public schools. At the South Ward School, Eliza Allen tried unsuccessfully to enroll his two children. He appealed to the Crawford County Court of Common Pleas, and Judge Pearson Church declared unconstitutional the 1854 state law mandating separate schools for Negro children. This law was amended effective July 4th, 1881 to prohibit such segregation. Thank you. Then we have Ethel May Gillespie, was as the first black female graduate of Allegheny College, graduating as a member of the class of 1915. She received a degree in music and served on the faculty of the Bordentown Training Academy in New Jersey for 20 years. She died in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, October 29, 1941, at the age of 50. She is buried in Greendale Cemetery. Her family was among the early families of Bethel AME Church. And by the way, there's a lounge named after her at Allegheny College. Beautiful lounge. So if you get a chance to go in and look at that lounge, please do. But there is a tombstone for sure on her gravesite in Greendale. The final section of our book, Out of the Gloomy Past Till Now We Stand at Last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. We closed the research with our interview of as many Black people as we could before our research came to a close. These were among those recommended as having a great impact on the community. So we'll highlight just a few. Jesse Hensley was born in Meadville in 1884. He attended Meadville Public School and later studied music at the Beethoven School of Music. He was a skilled mechanic. Reverend Leo Overton was born in Elizabeth City, North Carolina in 1890 and came to Meadville in 1923. He was district superintendent for the AME denomination. He and his brother Caesar developed religious education programs for young people, and I still hear people talk about that. Kenneth Lucas graduated from Meadville High School and worked as a chauffeur, a truck driver, a mechanic, and at Baker's Laundry, where he learned the business. In 1955, he opened his own laundry on Water Street. Did somebody ever use that laundry? Oh, yes, we did. He was the best. He was one of the founders of the Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Board, incorporated April 7, 1968. He was a charter member of the Meadville Latchkey Program. Any Latchkey members? All right, all right. Okay. Harrison Dixon Sr. Left Woodbury, Georgia, and came to Meadville in the early 1900s. He was employed as stable hand and housekeeper for Lewis Walker, founder of Talent. He later worked for John Trower and the Erie Railroad. His daughter Mabel Shields worked for Dr. and Mrs. Lawrence Palatia at Allegheny College and Governor and Mrs. Raymond P. Schaefer. Harrison Dixon Jr. graduated from Meadville area senior high school and completed classes at Pennsylvania State University. He worked at Shriver Company as salesman, then chemical operator at Viscose, and Allegheny College as base operator in security. Luther Reed Burris and Esther M. Burris. They came to Meadville in 1920. They shared the spirit of missionary work and a deep love of music. They were active in St. John Missionary Baptist Church. One of their 4 children was Jenny Carter. Oh, who remembers Jenny Carter? All right, all right. My goodness, I think she was our community pianist. She played for everybody. And she not only played for various organizations, she was actively engaged as activities director in active aging, a member of Meadville Medical Center Board of Directors, and president of the Meadville NAHCP chapter. Reverend Samuel Davis, he moved his family from Memphis, Tennessee to Meadville in 1918. He served for 20 years as pastor of St. John Missionary Baptist Church. He was a charter member and founder and president of the local NAACP chapter. He served as a member of Spencer Hospital Board, and he started the first surplus food program in Meadville. Miss Clotilde Anderson, who couldn't be with us today, has an extensive collection of the history of Bethel AME Church and African American history in Meadville. Bethel AME Church was organized in 1849 at 961 Liberty Street. The trustees included Richard and Robert Henderson. It was almost destroyed by fire in 1876, but was rebuilt. And that church still stands, and it looks the same as it did years ago. Then there's St. John Missionary Baptist Church, was founded in 1918 by Mr. and Mrs. Quincyberry and others. This church is located at 792 North Main Street. And then we looked at certain organizations that were formed early. Since the early 60s, the Meadville branch of the NACP strives to improve the political, educational, social, and economic status of minority groups. Presidents have included Reverend Owens, Fred Harris, Reverend Arnold Johnson, Miss Jenny Carter, Mr. Sam Bird, Dr. Elizabeth Pierce Stewart, Dr. Armendia Dixon, Mr. Drake Parker, Bishop Cameron Bowman, and current President Reverend Jackie Roberson. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Scholarship Board was incorporated independently in 1972 under the leadership of Webster McKnight, Reverend Arnold Johnson, Arnold Kushner, George Dewey, Patricia Jenkins, Kenneth Lucas, Dr. Denise Johnson, Dr. Armendia Dixon, Dr. Elizabeth Stewart, and Mayor Richard J. Ruhlman. It is now under the leadership of Dr. Nancy Smith. And now it's time for us to look at the implications for further research. African American genealogy is difficult because slaves were considered property, shutting them out of activities that generated records on which much genealogical research is based. But in spite of this, there are ways records were kept, and we keep looking at how we can get at that information. Now, there is an opportunity for ancestry updates using a plethora of ancestry tools. And I listed some of those tools: Ancestral Quest, MyHeritage, Family Tree, DNA testing, National State Archives, Ancestry.com, and more. And I know a lot of us need to look at our family history and find out who we are. Perhaps it is time for us to organize a genealogical society where we may learn how to use those tools, those ancestry tools, in discovering our heritage. Someone or interview teams may continue to interview African American families about their histories because we had to stop. Become involved in the Crawford County Historical Society. That society is phenomenal, and it could use a lot of hands, a lot of help. We could work toward the interlocking of history of all ethnic groups. My goodness, when we think of all the ethnic groups who have made Meadville great, it's tremendous. And if we could learn more about each other, that would just be fantastic. Advocate for grant funding to support research of ethnic groups in Meadville. Irish Americans, Italian Americans, whatever. We need to get busy doing that. Okay, well, my goodness, I think I have ended my presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions? Okay.
How active was the Underground Railroad?
It was extremely active. And I'm glad you asked that question, because I gave the original to the Historical Society, but I did bring a copy of Meadville Bicentennial Edition, and it covers the Underground Railroad in detail. Absolutely amazing. And not only does it do that, but it covers almost every aspect of our lives during that period. Whether it be banks, whether it be other churches, anything that had to do with Meadville. Agriculture, the whole 9 yards. but there is a detailed account of the Underground Railroad.
That would be a good topic for this group.
Well, we will be talking about the Underground Railroad. That's on our list, and I think that happens maybe in the spring, a little later in the spring. But we will be going to John Brown's tannery, and we will be looking at that history very closely, and that will give us a chance to look more at the Hendersons and those people that actually took place and helped with the Underground Railroad. Because it wasn't just a movement of African Americans, it was all people working together to make sure that we did away with slavery. And that's the beautiful thing. And that's why I pointed out that when we saw slaves in Meadville, there weren't that many, because Meadville didn't believe in it. But a few people who had a lot of money thought, well, I want to buy some slaves. But, you know, it didn't work very long. We frowned on it. So, good question. Thank you so much. I saw another question. Yes,
I was
Mrs.
just wondering when you came to Meadville.
I came to Meadville in '72. So I've been here, over 50 years? Yeah. And I have to say, I think I've been at Stone Church over 50 years. and it's so good to give a wonderful shout out for Stone Church who hosted this event. So, yeah. Any more questions? Yes.
Yes, with your Underground Railroad information there, how much information is included with other areas like upstate Western New York and also southern part of here of portions of the Underground Railroad in cooperation with Meadville?
Not very much. But when you look at the information about John Brown, you do see some connection, especially to Canada. Because that was mostly the stop for slaves here in Meadville, was the ones who were on their way to Canada.
Right.
Yes. Good question. Any more questions? Yes.
So I found an article from October of 1869. A colored man from Meadville, PA has been appointed a compositor in the government printing office.
All right.
How can I find his name?
Well, we're going to ask Mr. Yote. Because some of the questions that I had about, for example, the indentured servants, I went to Mr. Yote because he's an attorney that's on the law. I mean, he is a great. What, Mr. Yote? Stand up, Mr. Yote. Stand up. Yes. Yeah, just thanks. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope that when you look through the book of names, if you see somebody who might be your grandfather or your great grandfather, I mean that's a point. That's a starting point. Yes.
My question is, back because of the times and segregation, I mean back in the early 1800s and such, up at Greendale, is there a separate place for blacks who were buried? Or were they, throughout the cemetery?
Another good question. Some are throughout the cemetery, but early burials show that there definitely was a separation in the cemetery. And there are some cases, for example, the colored soldiers are just in a mass grave. So we don't know the names of the colored soldiers. They're there, but who are they? Yes, and that's something that hopefully we can begin to deal with. And that happened when Reverend Ron Colada looked for Eliza's gravesite. She discovered there wasn't one. So, but we did identify exactly where he was buried. But in some cases, no, we cannot identify who is there. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I wondered, with all the wonderful people in this area who have connections to the town, how can we bring our family histories all together? Should we start a site, a society, whatever you're at?
I think that first suggestion that we do a genealogical society where all people can come together and study their own history. So in that kind of society, if you're interested in Irish history, you study Irish history. If you're interested in Italian history, you study Italian history, and so on. If it's Sweden, you study Sweden history. And I think that's the beauty of genealogical societies that are formed all over the country. Is that while searching for your history, you also, join with other people and come closer together. So yes. One more question? Because I tell you, we have a great meal planned and a time to fellowship, and then if you want me to sign a few books, I'd be glad to, but we want to enjoy this meal. So we're going to ask Maria to tell us more about the meal. And thank you again, everybody. Thank you.
So amazing. I'm going to ask if we can give her one more round of applause. So up next is actually the son of one of the authors of this book. And there's something significant about the song that he'll be playing on the saxophone. We've all heard Amazing Grace. Beautiful, beautiful song. But do we know the history and the origins of that song? Some interesting facts for you. It was written by John Newton. John Newton was a merchant sailor and a captain of a slave ship. The slave ship went from Sierra Leone to the West Indies. In 1748, a storm off the coast of Ireland put the entire ship in danger, and not everybody made it very safely to land. He prayed and survived. He made it to land and swore to serve God if he was spared from injury and death. A little while after that, he decided to quit the slave trade, and he became an ordained minister for the Church of England. Now, talk about redemption, like full circle. It was beautiful to see and know that. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Michael Prester, whom is Deidre Prester's son. That was so amazing. He's so talented. Thank you very much, Michael. Up next, I'd like to bring up Mr. Tom Edmonds so he can share some coming next with you.
Thank you. My name is Tom Edmonds, and this is unexpected. I chair the Meadville 1825 Committee, and we're doing deep research into our forgotten history. Not only have we forgotten that history, it has not been written down, as Dr. Dixon mentioned. So we're striving to ask the question, what happened in 1825 when so many wonderful things happened? The foundation of the Methodist Church, the Episcopal Church, and the Unitarians all began in 1825. John Brown bought property near Guy's Mills to build a tannery, and General Lafayette came to Allegheny and said, "This is the most beautiful valley I've ever seen." Now, how many times did he say that when he was traveling around the country? So Dr. Dixon has been a central member of this 1825 committee along with other members here, and we've created a year's worth of free programs. Today's wonderful program is 1 in 24 that we're producing for Meadville and for Crawford County, and thanks to the Crawford County Heritage Foundation who is funding this program. So these are free programs. Watch for us on Facebook. Go to Meadville 1825, where you'll see the recording by Armstrong TV. Thank you very much, sir. So in a couple weeks, you have seen the program, but you'll want to share it with your friends. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Dixon, and thank you for coming. Oh, wait, Josh Sheritz. Where's Josh Sheritz? He's next. On April 22 at the Unitarian Church at Saturday, 1:30, April 22. Where am I? Oh yeah, it's March. So in 2 weeks, we're going to see Josh talk about Harm Jen Heidi Coper. Now that's the way the Heidi Copers say it, but I know you all are different. You say Heidi Cooper, but whatever. So thank you, Josh, and thank you, Dr. Dixon, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder, if you are interested in Judge Church's ruling, it is on the table back there. There is also a schedule of the upcoming Meadville 1825 events for the year. Up next, we will be having some words from Lisa.
Good afternoon, everybody. Wow, what a presentation. You did a fantastic job as always, and your commitment to excellence is all around us today. Don't we all feel humbled by this? First off, I'd like to thank Maria. Thank you so much for everything that you've done today to bring us all together so that we could enjoy this time together. So grateful for our parade of speakers. I am so moved by everything that I've heard today. Mayor Kinder, Josh Sheritz, Evangelist Dorothy Chapman, Ms. Caitlin Tompkins, sorry about that, Ms. Lynn Atwell, Ms. Jan Emblich, our saxophonist, Michael Prester. You've all appeared today. You've all moved us today, and I am so blessed by everything that I have heard and seen today. Thank you. Also, our hats are off to our ushers, Rich and Corinne Chafee from the Meadville 1825 Committee, Anna Mack, Angela Jones from the committee at large, our community at large, May and Eve Ream from the MLK Mentoring Program, and Doyle Anna from the MLK Mentor from the Allegheny College. Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your names. Dr. Dixon worked very closely with attorney Thomas Yoset about the updates from her book, Meadville Ebony Genealogy of Sorts. And Dr. Dixon can't stop talking about his knowledge, his patience, and devotion to Crawford County. Attorney Yoset, we appreciate everything that you do and all the knowledge that you bring and help us get clarity. Thank you. The appropriate technology for today, for this event, was a must. And so we have to thank the experts, Taylor Rasman, Tom Edmonds, and Mark McKinty. Our city and area are blessed to have the finest media. This event and the Meadville 1825 events were promoted by Armstrong, Bull Moose Marketing, Cool 101.7 FM, Erie News Now, Seven Mountains Media, and the Meadville Tribune. Aren't we fortunate to have this kind of publicity in our area? Thank you. So what do we do from today? Where do we go? What can, how do we move forward? Look at all the stuff that's happening. Take part of it. Understand, learn, see where we came from. Our Meadville history is so vast. And, I have been here in Meadville for about a little over 30 years. I've known Dr. Dixon for a good portion of that time. And I so appreciate everything that she brings forward. And again, like we've already heard, the excellence that she demands from us. And, we are so blessed. So get out there and get the knowledge and learn. And then don't just stop there. Pass it along. So make sure that you get involved with this stuff. The presenters throughout the year, let Tom Edmonds know if you want to assist with any of these events. He could use your help. And thank you for everything that you have done to make today special, because each of you have been a part of that. Thank you.